Welcome to Meet, Act, and Part, a Masonic podcast hosted by Midnight Freemasons, Greg Knott, Darren Larners, Todd Vriesen, and Bill Hostler.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of Meet, Act, and Part, the podcast. And let us introduce ourselves. I'm one of your co-hosts. I am Greg Knott.
I'm another one of your co-hosts. I'm Bill Hostler.
And last but not least, I'm your third co-host, Darren Laners.
So it's the year end. This is our second full year of putting this podcast together. You know, looking back 2 years ago, we weren't quite sure where it was going to go. The three of us were talking, and we've had, a few other guest co-hosts from now and then, but it's been a fun journey seeing where it went, who we've talked to, the discussions we've had with brothers from literally all over the world. It's also, it's coincided with the COVID pandemic. I think if we went back and listened early to some of our March, April, May of 2020 podcast, none of us ever dreamt we'd still be here 2 years later still talking about it, but we are. And certainly that has not only impacted our little podcast, but certainly the Freemasonry in general and, more importantly, the world at large. So that's had an impact, I think, on where we've been. So what we thought we'd do is just sort of go around. We'll have a round table tonight with Darren, Bill, and myself, maybe reflecting a little bit on some of the guests we've had in 2021. Also, some of the personal experiences we've had, what we did this past year, maybe not only Masonically, but personally as well. And so we'll just see where the discussion goes. So first of all, let me just say thank you for everyone that's been with us for these 2 years. We've certainly had a good time putting this together, and the most fun is, some of the unscripted stuff you guys don't hear that Bill and Darren and I talk about. It's, we get to catch up sort of in the pre-show stuff that we don't record just to see what's going on. So it's a lot of fun with that. First, let me mark the passing today of Thomas Jackson. Brother Jackson was very renowned within the Masonic world. He was one of those individuals that as soon as you met him, you're like, wow, I'd like to be like him in terms of how he lived life, how he approached life. And he was I told Bill and Darren before we get on here, to me, he struck me as someone that was a very deep thinker, not only about the craft, but really its place in the world. And you can go and search online and find several papers from him. There's an interview on YouTube that he did earlier this year. So there's some very fresh things. And he had a long Masonic career. He was the former Grand Secretary for the Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania. He had been the secretary for the World Grand Masters Association, and that may not be the exact word or title of it, but he was very involved internationally as well. And it's funny, I went to my bookshelf earlier today and got out his book, Masonic Perspectives, The Thoughts of a Grand Secretary. And it was published in 2015 by Plumstone. And I bought this book at Masonic Week 3 or 4 years ago, and I had a conversation with him at the time. And as I was thumbing through that book, I noticed when I was talking to him that he was also a Boy Scout. And of course, several episodes I've talked about similarities of scouting and Freemasonry. And he talks about that in that book, and he credits scouting really for setting him on his journey that he, finished yesterday or today and passed from this lodge to the Celestial Lodge above. And it was my quick observation of him, and he says this in some of his writings, that he used to be concerned with the numbers, as so many of us, when we come in the craft, we're like, oh, the numbers are going down. Been going down for 50 or 60 years now. He really became more concerned with the quality of what the membership was, what we were doing. He really wrote extensively about the decline of our influence in society. And he observed that it was amazing in a country like the United States, where really Freemasonry is under no threat from a government or from really any organized religion of any substance, was in that decline. Yet you would go overseas to other countries where Freemasons were perhaps persecuted for just being a member of the craft, and there were people wanting to be a part of it. And he opined extensively again about the decline, not only of our influence, but the impact our membership had in your local community and the type of people that we were attracting. And so that's just a little bit about Tom, but I encourage you to go out, and maybe we'll put in the show notes a link to a paper that he published in 2019 when he was speaking to the Grand Lodge of Kentucky. And it has some very pointed thoughts in it. And so we'll put that out there. But just wanted to mark his passing because he was one of the Masonic giants of his era, and certainly his influence on the craft won't be forgotten any time soon. So, Darren or Bill, any thoughts on that?
Tom, I first got acquainted with Tom's writings when he would do the book reviews for the Masonic Journal for the Scottish Rite Northern Masonic Jurisdiction. And he always did. He seemed to have a way of being able to tell you whether a book was worthy of actually picking up and reading or not. And I know he was big into the traditional observance movement, and I believe everything he said, and I truly believe that if more Masons would listen to Tom Jackson and his works and his writings, we might be able to overcome a lot of the issues we have today. Him and I, I never actually met the man, but him and I have held similar observations for years, and he's going to be a great loss to Masonry. We're going to really miss him, and I hope that someday we can find someone to fill his shoes.
Darren?
I didn't know much about Most Worshipful Brother Jackson. I think he was a past Grand Master, so I'll address him as such. But just in the brief moments here where I've been able to look through the article you shared, Greg, and as Greg said, we'll put this article out in the show notes. He reminds me a lot of Dwight Smith, who was, as Bill knows, former Grand Master and former Grand Secretary of Indiana. And I know this. I've been on the Midnight Freemason blog. I've been dissecting a brief piece by Brother Smith called Whither Are We Traveling? Brother Smith wrote this in 1963, and so much of it still applies today. It's scary. It just shows, I guess, that there's unfortunately not been a lot of maturity or growth within the Grand Lodges of Freemasonry throughout the various jurisdictions, because many of the issues that Brother Smith and Brother Jackson write about are the same issues, and their writings are separated by a good, I'd say, probably 30 years or so. In a way, it's kind of sad to know now that we have somebody else who was really trying to use his writing to turn Freemasonry into the right direction, if you will, and that voice has been silenced. Though I did not know Most Worshipful Brother Jackson, it's just in reading his writings, I can tell that he will be missed and his voice will be missed as well.
Yeah, definitely his impact on the craft will be long-lasting. Like, Darren, you've referenced Dwight Smith. I think he'll have that same kind of impact longer run. And I think with Dwight Smith, you could almost argue certainly he was impactful in his lifetime. But Darren has, found this article in his writings that he's, was opining on in the 60s. And it's like Darren basically alluded to, nothing has changed. As a matter of fact, it may have gotten worse. And so the impact that people can have in their writings will transcend their lifetime, generations down the road. And so I think that's Most Worshipful Brother Jackson definitely will have that impact. It got me to thinking about one of our guests in this kind of topic, and that was Russ Shervonia, the former Grand Master of California. We had one of the articles and one of the episodes we did was with him, and Russ's topic for a long time has been civility. Matter of fact, he's just written a new book on it that's come out, and I haven't had a chance to pick it up yet, but I'm looking forward to doing that. but yet civility is in a essence fits right into what we're talking about that Brother Jackson and Brother Smith wrote about. And Jackson would opine about we have lost some of our influence, which is certainly true in society. But part of that, I think, also goes hand in hand with that ability. If we pick up that baton with civility and other things, we can, again, have impact in society. Those things will, I think, help fix the numbers problem in and of itself, because people will want to be a part of what we have. And we don't need to see the numbers that we did post-World War II, but what we need is that influence that makes people want to be a part of what we stand for and want to stand with us in our day-to-day dealings in life.
Russ was an interesting thing. He brought up a lot of points, and much like Brother Jackson, his actions and what Russ is trying to accomplish within the craft, and not only within the craft, but within the world. If we were to bring back civility to our meetings and our craft, we might be able to kind of take a lot of the anger and a lot of the arguments away. We might be actually able to work together and forge ahead and create a new process and possibly build a new direction for our lodges and our craft, instead of just being segmented and, you believe this, I believe that. Well, let's just keep fighting, and then we'll keep fighting till the ship sinks. And, that's kind of what we're doing, not only within Freemasonry, but within the world. And if we can be civil to each other and possibly just work together and, put our disagreements aside, or at least come together and meet halfway, not only would that be able to maybe make Freemasonry something that could be great again, pardon the thing, but we might actually be able to do that with the entire world.
I agree. And, Darren, you and I have had discussions just either on car rides or whatever we've been about the ability for people to not be able to have rational discussions and disagree and come up with solutions, because we're so, tribalized right now that you either are on this side or that side. And that part in the middle where I think all the action should take place, that area of compromise isn't taking place. And so I just want to ask Darren, because you, as you referenced, Darren, you're writing that series of articles, and I think it sort of plays into that same theme. How do you think Freemasons, we talked about civility, but how do we encourage that ability to free think, have discussions, and have dialogue with one another?
I think we all can agree that Freemasonry is local. That you, Greg, you, Bill, you can really only influence the lodges that you are a part of. So I think that it is a matter of starting locally and starting within your lodge and having in your community, even maybe sponsoring, using your lodge to sponsor workshops to talk about civility and talk about how to talk to somebody that may have differing opinions than you, and how to come to a consensus where I'm not going to agree with what you think, and you're probably not going to agree with what I think, but there are things within the middle ground. There are places where we can meet, where we can agree on things, and we can agree on basic humanity of individuals. And I think that that's where we as Freemasons need to try to make our mark, because it's not something that we're going to be able to solve on a global level, and it's not something we're going to be able to solve, on a county level, state level. But I think that we can at least maybe, if we make the effort, and if we can reach some people in our community and help them with developing these skills, I think that we can slowly maybe make the world a better place. Because if you the idea being, if you teach a man to fish, you're going to feed him for the rest of his life. The same idea applies. I think if we can, as Freemasons, use some of our principles and use them to show members of the community that, look, we're an organization where men come from various backgrounds, various belief systems, but we all can sit here for an hour or two and just get along. And I think that's a beautiful thing, and I think it's a thing that we need in this world now more than ever. So I think that that's where we start, and we just try to reach. We're not going to reach everybody. I mean, if we have 20 people come to one of these things at a local lodge, and if 4 walk out with their mind changed, I think that we're doing something, because the hope will be that those 4 people will maybe reach another 4 people, and so on and so forth, and that maybe slowly we can turn the tide. And it's not going to, I don't think it's something that we will ever reap the benefits of in our lifetime, but I think that if we can at least try to do something instead of just watching essentially our communities, our neighbors bicker with each other. And it's just a path that we're going down a path that it's going to be difficult to recover from. And we're getting to a point where you are seeing people get labeled with certain labels, snowflake, lefty, righty, whatever, Nazi, whatever you want to call people, just based on their political belief. And that's not, and obviously there are some people that are white supremacists, and I'm not talking about the ones that we're not going to be able to reach, but I'm talking about the average American, that we can potentially use Freemasonry as a tool to help develop some skills to help them communicate with their neighbor. And maybe I'm being optimistic. I don't know.
Bill?
Well, by our own lodge rules, we're supposed to be doing this already. We're supposed to not allow, at least during our meetings, such things as politics or religion to creep into any of our discussions. Harmony and peace are supposed to be at all times within meeting walls. But, we should be the ones that lead the example anyway. I was thinking while Darren was talking that there's a lot of examples going on, even right now, that we are the example. This podcast is a good example for number one. Darren, myself, and everybody, we all 3 of us have our own political beliefs. None of us are, we don't all hold it. Some of us are liberal, some of us are conservative, some of us are middle of the road. But we all 3 work together. We don't let our political lives rule how we operate as a team. We don't allow the Midnight Freemasons. Some of us are of different religions. Some of us don't even come close to believing the same things as the other does. But we all work great as an integral unit. And I'm thinking to myself, picture in your mind one of those elaborate row of dominoes that kind of go around, that are set up, and then how one domino, if you knock that down, it will take it, completely knock all the remainders down, and it'll form some type of design. If you are that domino and you can start that row, you can possibly start a chain reaction within your own community, which may possibly be within your own state, your own country, and maybe even around the world. It sounds kind of Pollyanna-ish, but if several members of your lodge who have completely nothing in common, and get involved and work together for the good of your lodge, you can possibly let that be seen in within not only your lodge, but maybe within your district or within the town that you live in. People will see that. They say, well, if those guys can work together, you might have a black man, you might have a young guy covered in tattoos, a 70-year-old guy, a Hispanic, Asian, you pick diversified group of whatever, of men like that, working together for a common goal. And they're getting along and they're getting their job done. And there's not arguing, they're not bickering, but they're all working for a common goal in peace and harmony. That could be possibly a catalyst to knock over that first domino, and it could possibly change. I mean, not everybody wants to be in harmony with each other. They just have to possibly be reminded of it. I was thinking about during the fighting in Northern Ireland between the British and the Irish nationalists. There was constantly fighting, gunfire, bombings, such things in Dublin. And two mothers, one on one side and one on the other, they seen each other on opposite sides of the thing, and they got together. They went to the front, to the borderline, and one said to the other, says, "I am sick of this. I don't want my kids to grow up with this." And the other one replied, "I'm the same way." And those two got together and they started the thing. And between them two getting together for a common goal, they started a chain reaction which led to Sinn Féin and the English government getting together. And it caused peace in Northern Ireland. All it took was these two women getting together, both of them saying, "We've had enough and we want change and we want peace." All you have to do is, if you want something bad enough and if you want a change, you can create it yourself. You just have to want it, and you have to be willing to give on each side, and you have to be able to work with others. And that's all we need to do in our lives. That's all we need to do in our towns. And we just have to want change. We have to be willing to compromise. And such a thing like that can cause that chain reaction with those dominoes, and possibly we just may have to quit listening to outside sources like media, who both on either side have mercenary motives. But we could possibly get through this and cause stability if we want it.
Yeah, Bill, you and Darren both hit on so many great ideas and topics. I think most people, if you just ask them individually outside of the group pressure kind of a situation, be like, don't you think we should compromise and try to find that middle ground? And you get some of what you want, I get some of what I want, and we both walk away not entirely 100% satisfied, but knowing that, yeah, we struck a chord with each other and talk with each other. I think if you talk to most people individually, they're like, yeah, that's where we want to be. That's how it should work. But unfortunately, with social media and all the other ways that we're divided and tribalized, that's not the impact. So I think, Bill, to your point, is people got to want it. And I think where Freemasonry has an opportunity at the local level, because I think Darren's right, the influence is going to come locally, and all those local things that are done across, a state or whatever geographic region you're talking about, they add up together to have the collective influence. And this is where we can help set the example for facilitating some of those conversations and saying, hey, look, this is what we do every month. Yeah, I mean, some of our meetings aren't very exciting. So what? There's still the art of compromise being done every month and in your local lodge. And that's the practice of democracy through discussion and ends up a vote. And it's those discussions that don't take place anymore. So, okay, talking about the year in reflection. So one of the things I had an opportunity this past year, I attended it was a farm meeting with one of the congressmen. And so the congressman came and was given an update of what was going on in DC and this, that, and the other. And I got to ask the last question of the day. And so I asked him, I said, with all the polarization that's going on in our country right now, what can you do? What can we do to try to help improve it? And we had some of the exact same conversation we just spoke about here, need to compromise, etc. But I said, what? That's fine, but who's going to be the first to lead? And, this person readily admitted what we needed to do to help and move forward as a country. But yet also said in the same hand, if I don't respond basically in kind, and I don't mean kindness, but in kind or in likewise, to some of the, quote, opposition, then I'll get blown out of the water and I won't be in Congress. And it illustrated where we're at, that people recognize the need for us to talk with one another and have compromise and not act so one-sided. But yet, in practice, that's not what we're doing. To bring it back to our conversation in Freemasonry, this is, again, where I think the opportunity is, as both Darren and Bill have pointed out. And, of course, we could have hours and hours and hours of episodes on this topic alone, but in our year-end recap, I think it was kind of an appropriate one to look back and the conversation we had with Russ. So why don't we'll wrap that part of it up with that. We won't spend the whole episode on that area. But let me just throw up another, interesting thing. And that was, kind of what we did over the summer. And all three of us had an adventure in different things. In my case, I was very honored. I got to go to Cleveland and receive the 33rd degree. And I was so impressed with the entire meeting and everything that went on. I've been to lots of meetings over the years for business and whatever. And I have never seen anything so well organized where I felt so valued as an individual as I did during that 5 days. And they just treated all the 33rd degree candidates just like royalty. It was just so well planned and executed, and it added so much value to my perception of the Scottish Rite and Freemasonry in general. And just, it was, I don't know, a tremendous experience. Again, not to go back to what we were just talking about it, but in many ways it re-emphasized the need for us to do some of those things. And that was actually one of the challenges they gave us, is like, the 33rd is not an end, but it's a beginning. And it really kind of inspired us to go back out into our communities and do some of those things. So that was one of the things I got to do this summer. Spent a lot of time at a lake house in Kentucky that, Darren's been able to visit once. And we did a field trip down there to the museum at Fort Knox and had a good time there. And so, all the year wasn't doom and gloom. And Darren and Bill both had some exciting trips, and we talked about them. I'm going to start with Darren. You went out west, and that actually led to you meeting some people, and one of our guests was as a result of your trip.
Yeah, I didn't actually get to meet Most Worshipful Brother Russ Smith, but I conversed with him over email. On my trip out west, I went to Craters of the Moon National Monument, and to get there, you pass through Arco, Idaho. And Arco, Idaho has the distinction of being the first town powered by atomic power. It was only powered for about an hour by a nuclear, or I guess at that point it would have been an atomic reactor that was nearby. And that, unfortunately, when I went, that reactor was closed, but you can actually go and visit it. I believe the Department of Energy has it, is in charge of it, and they still have it open and give tours, etc., and explain kind of what the reactor, how it functioned. I thought it was really neat to be able to find the lodge there, and wanted to write an article for the Midnight Freemason blog on that lodge in Arco, since it would have been, in my mind, the first Masonic lodge in the world to be powered by atomic power, and in doing so was connected with the Grand Master of the state of Idaho, and we were able to get Russ as a guest on the program. So that was really neat to, get to speak with him, and he was such a fascinating guest. I would urge people to go back and listen to that episode, especially how he got into Freemasonry. I thought was really interesting story.
Yeah, it was just very, very fascinating. And, there's a lot of our guests. We need to do another follow-up episode, just frankly, because they were so interesting and we didn't have enough time to get as in-depth as we wanted to on some of the stuff. Bill went to the north part of the United States, and what just had to have been a fabulous trip to Alaska. Bill?
Yeah, we went to the Great White North, I got to travel pretty much a good portion of the state of Alaska. We landed in Anchorage, and we spent a couple of days in Seward, Alaska, and I went to go look for the Masonic Temple in Seward, Alaska, and it turned out, as I was looking, I was staying just about 2 blocks from it. It was a beautiful little Episcopal church that the lodge rents, and I had taken a picture of it because it's just so picturesque. And as I started Googling it, I found it out. I never had the opportunity to actually visit the lodge. They were dark for the time, and they'd already had their meetings for that period. But the building itself is just beautiful. It's like over 100 years old, and if I ever get to go back up there, I definitely want to go and check it out. But I ended up writing a piece for the Midnight Freemasons about the history of that building and how the Masons rented that hall. And then we went to another couple towns, and we visited North Pole, Alaska, and I wanted to visit the North Pole Lodge. And I'd always heard, and I don't know, it may be true, but I didn't get to visit, but the master of the lodge there in North Pole wears a Santa cap instead of a cowboy hat or any other type of cap when he's in the East. I thought, well, that would have been interesting, but all the Masonic activity had already ceased for that period while I was there, naturally. But we finally found the building, and they rent a Lions Club hall. Apparently, not many of the lodges in Alaska have their own buildings. So I did finally get to find the Grand Lodge of Alaska building, and I had my photograph taken there. But it was a beautiful, beautiful state. We got to do a lot of things. We went gold mining, and some of the people we went with went deep sea fishing, and it was definitely an interesting trip. And if you have an opportunity to go to Alaska, I definitely encourage you to go do it. We loved taking ATVs out near Denali, and we're actually part of the 15% club where we actually got to see the top of it without the clouds. It's really beautiful. I mean, you'll never see any other part of the country that looks like that anymore. It's all still pretty much natural and beautiful.
Yeah, I hope to go. I was going to go in 20 or 21 and ended up we canceled our trip, so maybe another time.
Yeah, maybe we'll take that Midnight Freemasons cruise up there in Hawaii.
Yeah, boy, wouldn't that be great? I'm ready to go. So, well, I know you both did a lot of other things, and Darren, I'm going to pick your brain a little bit about something you did recently, and you presented at the Double Eagle Con in Chicago, and were one of, I think, 8 featured speakers, if I recall. But and Darren had given his talk locally a couple of times, and Darren, I just asked you to reflect on how it went. What'd you learn? What was the interactions like with the brothers, etc.?
Yes, so thanks for bringing that up, Greg. I had the wonderful opportunity to speak at Double Eagle Con in Bloomingdale, Illinois at the Valley of Chicago. Some fantastic Masonic speakers. On the slate, I would say the highlight of my day was getting to meet in person Most Worshipful Brother Robert Davis of the great state of Oklahoma, and also Brother Chuck Dunning, who I'd corresponded with previously, but never had met in person. So those were big highlights of mine. The nicest surprise was that Ben Wallace from North Carolina had came in for it. I did not expect to see him there, and it was nice to catch up with Ben. Ben came to visit Homer Lodge for the Illinois Lodge Research Spring 2017 Symposium, I believe. And we got a freak snowstorm that day, and I was in charge of the transportation, getting Ben from his hotel in Champaign out to Homer and back. So that led to some interesting times and travels. I think they thought that they were going to die a couple of times in the car, and because I guess they probably aren't used to driving in the snow like we are. But I got them back safely, and it was nice to see Ben. And Tony Rathbone was with Ben as well, and Tony had also come to visit us at Homer, so it was good to catch up with both of those brothers from North Carolina. As Greg mentioned, I gave a presentation basically about the core values in the Northern Masonic jurisdiction of Scottish Rite and how those core values interact with the qualities of somebody who is mature masculine. And a lot of the presentation is about how it's difficult for men to make friends, and it's also difficult for men to speak with their friends regarding their emotions and how we need to be able to make friends with other men that allow us to, you know, share these feelings, because not sharing these feelings can lead to anger, depression, and in some cases suicide. So very important topic. I was very honored to be chosen to speak that day, and I know that my presentation made a mark when Most Worship Brother Davis asked for it, because there were some data in it that he wanted to incorporate in some of his future presentations. So that was a big honor for me to be able to speak and meet these brothers and start friendships with them. So it's was really great, and then great to see some of the other brothers that I hadn't seen in a while, like Ben and Tony, and just felt incredibly welcomed by all the members of LA Chicago. And there were a lot of brothers that had come from other places as well. There were some brothers who came from the Valley of Minneapolis and Minnesota for the presentation, and just meeting the brothers of, once again, getting to meet these brothers, interact with them, and have good fellowship and great day of education. It was priceless in my opinion. I'm very, like I said, very, very honored to be chosen to speak, and hopefully they'll have me back.
No, that's awesome, Darren, that you got to go. No, you did a great job on the presentation just from the previews that you gave us down here. My question for you would be, you've planned a symposium, you've been a speaker at a Masonic Con type of event. Do you foresee those as the future of Masonic education, or where do they fit into the total puzzle of how to include Masonic education?
It's a great question. I don't see them as the future, but I do see them as a trend that is going to stick around. I think that what is useful with these Masonic cons or these conferences is that it gives, I think, a brother who may not know what Masonic education is about an insight into what it can be about. And all these topics that we spoke of were tied into the Scottish Rite, based upon it being a Scottish Rite sponsored event. You know, in any case, all the conferences that I've attended, Esotericon, you know, trends more towards some of the esoteric themes in Freemasonry, but still, all of these conferences, the ones that I've been part of, the ones that I've planned, all I think show that you can have Masonic education in your own lodge, and it's not that difficult. And I'm hoping that that men, you know, who attend these things, other than the regular guys like myself who are education junkies, but you know, I guess the average Joe Six-Pack Freemason who doesn't know a lot about Masonic education, I think, can go to one of these conferences and not only get great Masonic education and light from that day, but also see, you know, what a good discussion can be had coming from these presentations. And I would say that out of all the presentations that were that day, mine probably had the longest Q&A. It really did spark a lot of conversation between brethren, and it was really good to get that conversation going and hear all of everybody's opinions and input.
Yeah, it's, you know, for our 2022 episode bucket list, Darren, I'd love you to, you know, give a modified form of that presentation, just because of some of the reasons you hit on, and that is and it really ties back into what we were talking about earlier, was the ability for people to have conversations with each other. And in this case, we're not even talking about politics and all that. It's just the simple fact of, conversation tends to relieve anxiety, stress. It helps improve understanding between people. In this case, you're talking about, masculinity and how brothers can talk better with each other. But anyway, I want to put that on our show list for down the road in 2022. Hey, Bill, one of the things I think we were talking about on email yesterday was, I don't know if you got a chance to watch it, but last night I watched the cinematic review, the virtual cinematic reunion that was put on by the Orient of Missouri Scottish Rite. Didn't know if you had a chance to tune into that, but I was so fascinated with what they did. It was so well done. I wanted to give a few minutes to review it. Did you have a chance to see it?
Actually, I did. In fact, that's the reason we were supposed to record this last night. And then you remembered about that. And so we postponed this to do it today, this afternoon. And I tuned in and watched it, and it was really well done. I mean, I'm used to watching the Northern Masonic jurisdictions video presentations of degrees, but that was really well done. I was honest. It was great to see, and I got to see Brother Steve Harrison doing his part in the degree work too, and I thought that was kind of neat. But yeah, I'm glad to see that at least I don't know if it's a test, the Southern jurisdiction, as to see if it's a possibility for future virtual reunions, or whether this is just a one-up. But I was really impressed with it. The cinematics was wonderful. There was nothing you couldn't show anyone. There was nothing esoteric. There was nothing that really you couldn't see. And I think to a candidate who had been watching it the first time, he would have really got a good idea of a good start. Hopefully gave him an idea to go see the remainder of them. I was really impressed.
Yeah, I was too. To give our listeners a little bit more insight as to what it was, the Orient of Missouri put forth a platform where they went through all 29 Scottish Rite degrees, and really even went through the 3 Blue Lodge degrees. And how they did it was, let's start with the 4th degree. They had somebody, and these are the Southern jurisdiction degrees, had somebody really give an overview of what it was and what was going to take place in that degree. And they would have a very short, I don't even think actual part of the degree, but they would have some of the characters on stage in costume, doing a little bit of it, maybe just a tiny bit of it, but the narration gave you a true perspective as to what it was, and some history of the degree. But I think the most important part I got out of it was pulling out those moral lessons for each of them, and then you could see how they were building on those from one degree to the next. And it was, if you tuned into the early part of it, it was a full 4 hours to go through all those, but I was just entranced to the end of it. I was just very impressed. This was actually an encore presentation. They had done it last year, and I didn't get I don't know why I didn't see it or what, didn't sign up for it, but anyway, they did it again. And so they presented them so that candidates could join. And the Grand Lodge of Missouri was one of the sponsors and supporters of this. So they had, the buy-in of the Grand Lodge. What was, I guess, interesting was not only did they go through all those degrees, but they also explained other parts of the Scottish Rite. One example that comes to my mind, Aaron Shoemaker, who I know, he's from Missouri, and had some parts in several of the degree presentations. But anyway, he gave a preview as to what the 4 caps in Scottish Rite mean in the Southern jurisdiction. And so he had the 4 caps there, the various colors, and, what they stood for. He even explained, why do we wear those caps to begin with? And I'll be honest, I didn't know. And so I learned something. And so if you're completely new, you understood after his talk about, one's the 33rd, one was the commander-in-chief and other things, and just gave you a good overview of what was going to go on when you saw those. So Anyway, kudos to the Orient of Missouri, the Grand Lodge of Missouri, and all of those brethren who put that cinematic version together. It really got me thinking. It's like, well, what could we do at the Valley of Danville here in Illinois? In the northern, could we do some of those, or even short ones in between the full degrees?
They do have some neat stuff, and I liked also how they had the nice little representation for DMLA and then Rite Care, and they really gave a good presentation on everything. And I was impressed with the caps too. And one thing that and I even asked Darren about this a couple weeks ago because, even though I'm a member of this northern jurisdiction, and that's where I was made a 32nd, I never went to to the meetings because really they never really wanted us to go to our meetings in my valley. I asked him, I says, when you pray in a valley meeting in the northern Masonic jurisdiction, do you do the sign of the Lamb? I says, that took me aback when I was in the southern jurisdiction. When you pray, you hold, like you're holding a lamb, because I don't ever remember doing that in the north. And I'm still kind of curious about that. Darren said he didn't think so, except maybe in a certain degree. And so I thought, well, shoot, I
don't think so. I don't think it was new to me seeing it there too. I don't think we do.
Yeah, I had to actually learn that because I was kind of caught flat-footed when I went into it for the first time.
Yeah, so it's funny, Bill, since we had that conversation at Double Eagle Con, all of the brethren in the Valley of Chicago do use the sign of the Lamb. What I'm talking about is, having your arms kind of crossed and your hands on your shoulders. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, you put your left hand over your right shoulder,
right?
And then over your right arm, and then you spread your fingers and you bow your head.
Right. So all the brethren in the Valley of Chicago, that's how they, for the most part, that's how they prepared themselves for the benedictions that took place over the meals that day. So I think it might just be valley by valley in the Northern Masonic jurisdiction, but yeah, and in Danville, I was never taught that, but it was kind of neat to see the brethren in the Valley of Chicago do that.
I think there must be a lot in the Northern jurisdiction that's valley to valley, because I've noticed that there's a lot more in the Southern jurisdiction that's kind of, no matter where you go, it's done this way. Like caps. You always wear a cap in the Southern jurisdiction. But I never wore one in Fort Wayne. And I think in Indianapolis, it's something you do, or at least the officers do. But I don't think in Danville you do, unless you're 33rd or MSA. Is that right?
Oh, yes, or an officer. The officers wear them too. I have seen a few people start to wear the blue caps, which is the 32nd degree cap. And it's something I'd like to see more people do. I think, Bill and Darren, to your points, though, it's kind of like we were talking earlier. Everything seems to be local. And that also applies to Scottish Rite and some of the, local customs and traditions that each of those have as well.
And there's another, if you go searching on YouTube for it, they have this, I think it's the Kansas City Valley, has a video about Masonic 32nd degree rings and Scottish Rite rings. And it's just as interesting as the one about the caps. They talk about the only official ring for an average everyday member is the 14th degree ring with the yod. That the 32nd degree, that you can pretty much have anyone you want. That's not really considered to be official ring. And then the 33rd is official. But I thought, I'll be darned, I never knew that. And so it's like, those are some things that I really think are kind of interesting. And I truly think that we should have a show just based on the Scottish Rite in the two jurisdictions one of these days.
Okay, there we've got show number 2 on the bucket list for 2022.
I'm on it.
So no, I would love to. And you know what Darren and I, Bill, have talked about, and I think we've talked about with you, someday 3 of us are gonna do a road trip. Of course, the ideal would be go to Guthrie and see all 29 of the full degrees portrayed in a weekend, I just think that'd be awesome. That's something definitely we're going to do. Hopefully in 22, if not somewhere in the not too distant future, because I think we'd all have a great time with it. So anyway, that was such a tremendous production. Thank you to the Orient of Missouri for allowing all of us from, not even your jurisdiction to participate and see it. I really, really enjoyed it.
And if you are a member of the Scottish Rite and you're interested in finding out more about this, you can go to, I believe the URL is scottishrite.live, and you can register for emails talking about future dates on that.
Yeah, and we'll throw that link in the show notes as well so that you can see it. So what else did we do in 2021? Well, Bill, we have spoken a little bit about what you did in regards to your book. And I just wanted to know how it was coming. I know I bought the Kindle version early and I've started to go through it. And of course, you've got the hard copy version. I know it's available on Amazon. I saw that you had a few copies that you were autographing. How goes the book sales?
Well, I'm darn near a New York Times bestseller. I think yesterday as I looked, I've sold 19 copies. So I'm right up there with, all the bestsellers. But no, seriously, you bought as far as I know, you bought the first copy off the Amazon. So congratulations. And thank you. But it's going okay. I mean, Roger Van Gordon once said that a Masonic bestseller is when you sell 3 books. So, I mean, I figure I'm a bestseller now, but it's going well. I'm really pleased that anybody actually even considered buying my book. So I'm tickled about that. And I think I've had like 6 or 7 people actually want autograph book, and that just still blows me away. I'm in the process of signing them and getting them ready to mail this week right now. And it's going well. It's been kind of fun. I mean, it really is. It's been surprising how much work it took to put together, and it's gratifying just to know that I've actually done something like that. I don't know if I'll ever have another one. I like to think that I'd like to put the 50-year member series into a book form, but even if I never do, I've done one bucket list item, and that's been a published author.
Yeah, you've done that. I've had that on my list forever, and it's still there. So we'll see. Maybe 2022. Gosh, in 2 days as we record this, I can start to get my resolutions all set out just so by February 1, I can have them all broken. So,
yeah, by my first day, you can be right back to being good old Greg Knott again.
Yeah, exactly. Eating my pizza, eating out of the gas stations, and all the other healthy stuff I do.
The thing that makes life great.
I was going to say that I was personally challenged by Ben Wallace to come out with a book, so I gave him some of the ideas I was working on, but I guess that should be the challenge, Greg, that we both need to get a Masonic book out in 2022. So
I really think you should.
I mean, if Bill can do it, then that's proven anybody can do it.
That really proves it right there. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah. Okay, Darren, we're going to stay on each other because we need to do this. And I think if nothing else in this podcast, what the theme recurring over and over and over is we all love Masonic education. And it's funny, the three of us approach it from different ways. And I think we all have 3 different interests if you were to, peel it back as to where our particular, areas of interest lie. But at the core, it's all the same. And it's about, getting brethren engaged in learning and improving oneself. And I'm proud that the 3 of us, amongst many of our other brethren we know, are part of the catalyst of what I would consider a movement that's changing Freemasonry. And so anyway, you're right, Darren. We need to get our book so we can further this cause.
I'll tell you what, I've been thinking about, believe it or not, starting my own publishing company because I had somebody tell me how to do that. You guys write them, I'll publish them.
Perfect.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan.
Maybe all 3 of us could write a book together. 3 fat Masons write a book.
Yeah, how to cook green beans.
Wow.
There you go. That'd be a bestseller.
And cheese sandwiches or something, I don't know.
So. Bacon and cheese sandwiches.
Yeah. Well, we're getting long on our show here. We've had a little bit of fun looking back at 2021. I'll give it just a little bit. Let me ask Darren and Bill first if you've got any closing thoughts for 2021 as we wrap it up. I'll go to Bill.
Well, it was a great year for me anyway. It was an unusual year. I mean, it just amazes me we've still kept this train running. I mean, we've had a lot of great episodes. We've met a lot of great people, virtually on this thing. And it's really, I think we get a lot of comments on how much people love what we do. And I think if I can speak for the three of us, we're all shocked and really tickled that people listen to us and we love what we do. And I hope we can do even better for them in the next year of 2022. And just thank you for listening. And if you like what we do, please consider using that little button on our website to sign up for our Patreon page.
Exactly. And Darren.
I just echo what Bill said. A big thank you to our listeners, because without anybody listening, there'd be no point in putting the podcast together, although I still have fun doing it. And especially a thank you to all of our guests and to my co-hosts, Greg and Bill. Just appreciate you more than you'll ever know. And I'd also like to thank my girlfriend, Lisa, who supports me in all my Masonic undertakings, even if she doesn't quite understand sometimes what the hubbub is about.
And hasn't smothered you with a pillow yet.
That is most important, Bill, and I'm sure that there may have several times that thought may have crossed her mind, but
we can't do that yet because, as we've explained in other episodes, Darren is still, even at the end of 2021, my intern, and I've got to have an intern. Bill lives too far away, so he can't be the intern. It has to be Darren.
You have Rocky. You'll be in good hands.
Yeah. There we go. Hey, I just want to say again, as Bill and Darren did, thank you for listening. We do have a lot of fun doing this. 2 years just flew by. We're going to try some, not only some good topics in 2022, but we may add some bells and whistles to our little production that we're in discussions of right now. And the key thing is we want to have some fun, and that fun translates into you enjoying what we talk about, and maybe you learn from us and share some of your thoughts, then we are grateful. So just on Bill's behalf, let me thank Tammy for him, and let me thank Brooke for me, my wife, for all the support they do give us and all of our families in general. So with that, I wish you a happy new year for 2022. Again, thank you for listening in 2021. And we'll see you soon on another exciting episode of Meet, Act, and Part.
Thank you for listening to Meet, Act, and Part. For more information about our show, visit our website at www.meetactandpart.com. While there, please consider supporting the show by sponsoring us on Patreon. Until we meet again, may we meet, act, and part.